Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of NASCAR's biggest what ifs. What if Dale Earnhardt survives Daytona in 2001? Now, in a bit of a sequel to our video, NASCAR's biggest what ifs, if DEI let Darrell Waltrip finish the 1998 Cup Series season in that number one. We're going to start this episode at the beginning of the 1999 NASCAR Cup Series season. And it goes all the way to Speed Weeks in Daytona in 2001. Also in this series, Dale Earnhardt doesn't actually perish in that accident at Daytona in 2001. So, enjoy this trip down Splash and Go Racing's alternative reality memory lane. So, after Darrell Waltrip had a career resurgence throughout the 1998 Cup Series season, beginning originally as a fill-in driver for the injured Steve Park, until Waltrip's performance was so solid that Dale Earnhardt decided to expand DEI to a two-car operation. Once Park returned from his injuries, it was the 1999 NASCAR Cup Series season, and DEI was a two-car team once again. Darrell Waltrip was behind the wheel of the number 66 Kmart Chevrolet. Steve Park returned to the number 1 Pennzoil Chevrolet. In reality, Waltrip ended up driving a number 66 sponsored by Kmart, though it was certainly not for DEI, but rather for Haas Carter Motorsports, a mid-pack best team. The reason Waltrip still drove a Kmart-sponsored number 66 is because back in 1998, before his sponsor quit paying what they had originally agreed to, forcing him to sell his number 17 race team, he and Kmart was in discussions for them to become his sponsor, beginning in 1998. Now, 66 was the number that they had chose due to cross-branding for Kmart and its Route 66 brand. For the Daytona 500, both DEI team cars had some speed. Park ran mid-pack for the majority of the race, though he did work his way up into the top 5 a couple of times. Much the same with his teammate Darrell Waltrip until lap 136, when Park was collected in a 12-car accident, relegating him and his Pennzoil Chevrolet to a 34th place finish. Waltrip made it past the accident, staying out of trouble the rest of the race, finishing 8th. Team owner Dale Earnhardt had an awesome race, almost winning the Daytona 500 for the second year in a row, finishing second to Jeff Gordon. From there, Waltrip opened the first 6 races in the 1999 NASCAR Cup Series season with the best finish of 4th at Texas. Steve Park really didn't have any strong runs in those first 6 races, with the best finish of 12th at Darlington. As for Earnhardt, his 1999 was not starting the way he wanted, that was certain, with the best finish of 7th at Las Vegas in the spring. As for race 7 at Bristol, Darrell Waltrip looked as awesome as he did back in his prime on the high banks of that half-mile short track in Bristol, Tennessee. Qualifying on the pole, leading the most laps, 425, on his way to his 13th Cup Series victory at that half-mile short track. This 6-race streak for Waltrip wasn't bad by any means, collecting another top 5, finishing 5th at Richmond in the spring. Park had a string of finishes 23rd or worse during this period, though at Charlotte, during the Coca-Cola 600, he was competitive, qualifying in the top 5 and leading 92 laps before an accident on lap 241 ended his race. Now, Dale Earnhardt, he was pretty solid through this period, leading 70 laps en route to victory at Talladega Superspeedway in the spring, finishing no worse than 19th throughout this 6-race stint. Over the following 5 Cup Series races, Waltrip only had one really bad race weekend at Pocono in the late spring, crashing out on lap 8 and finishing dead last, 43rd. Other than that, his best finish was 4th at Sonoma in the summer. Other than the 43rd, his worst finish in this 5-race stint was 12th at Michigan in the spring. Steve Park's difficult beginning to the 1999 season continued, as he had 2 finishes lower than 40th, one due to an accident and one due to engine failure. Though at Michigan in the spring, Park did earn his first top 10 of the season with a 6th place effort. Team owner Dale Earnhardt had another decent 5-race stretch, not finishing worse than 15th, and his best finish coming at Daytona in the summer, 2nd place. The next 6-race stint of the 1999 NASCAR Cup Series season we're going to cover is from Loudon in the summer all the way through Bristol in the fall. Darrell Waltrip, already having a better season than he had since the early 90s, had decent runs during this period. His best finish was 3rd at Watkins Glen, where he also won the pole. His worst finish was 42nd, following an accident on lap 141. The accident happened at Loudon. Otherwise, his worst finish was 18th twice, at Pocono in the summer and Bristol in the fall. Steve Park finally got on a bit of a good run of solid finishes. His best finish was 8th at Pocono in the summer, and his worst finish was 31st at Bristol in the fall. Other than the finish at Bristol, Park finished inside the top 20 in all 5 other races. Earnhardt was running consistently solid at this point. All 6 finishes were inside the top 20, the best of which was a bit of a controversial victory at Bristol in the fall, when Earnhardt coined the phrase, "I didn't mean to spin him, just to rattle his cage a little bit." He led 46 laps en route to victory that day. This was Earnhardt's 2nd victory of the season. His worst finish was 20th at Watkins Glen. The following 6-race stint we're going to look at is from Darlington in the fall to Charlotte in the fall. Darrell Waltrip had an excellent 6-race stint. His best finish was 4th at Martinsville in the fall. Now, his worst finish doesn't really reflect how well he ran at Dover in the fall, finishing 32nd, though he won the pole and led 22 laps throughout the event, also winning a pole at Loudon. Other than the 32nd place finish, his worst finish was 14th at Richmond in the fall. Not to mention, DW led laps at Loudon, 84, and Charlotte, 18. As for Steve Park in that number 1 Pennzoil Chevrolet, he and Paul Andrews in the bunch really started to run consistently well. In his 6-race stint, Park's best finish was 9th at Dover in the fall. His worst finish was 16th at Richmond in the fall. Finally, Steve Park was really beginning to get the hang of the Cup Series cars and accustomed to the level of competition. Owner Dale Earnhardt again had a strong 6-race stint, with his best finish 2nd coming at Martinsville in the fall. His worst finish was 22nd at Darlington in the fall. Other than the 22nd, he finished 14th or better in all of the other 5 races in that stint. The latest addition to DEI's Cup Series division of the race team was Dale Earnhardt Jr. He made 5 starts in a number 8 Budweiser Chevrolet. His best finish would come at Richmond in the fall, 10th. Also, this would be his first career Cup Series top 10 finish. As good old DW wrapped up his first full season behind the wheel of Dale Earnhardt Incorporated Chevrolet, he ran his final 5-race stint of the 1999 NASCAR Cup Series season. Darrell had a very strong run at Rockingham in the fall, starting 3rd, leading 107 laps, and finishing 5th. Now, his worst finish was 32nd at Phoenix. Now, otherwise, Waltrip didn't finish worse than 13th. Steve Park finally wrapped up his first complete season driving that number 1 Pennzoil Chevrolet. His best finish was 12th in Atlanta in the fall, while also leading 71 laps as well, though his worst finish was 19th at Homestead. So, Park had really shown improvement from the first part of the 1999 season to the final part. Owner Dale Earnhardt had a strong finish to his 99 NASCAR Cup Series season, winning his 3rd race of the season. sweeping both Talladega races and bringing his career total Cup Series victories at Talladega to 9. The only bad finish was a 40th at Rockingham following an accident on lap 323. Otherwise, he finished 11th or better. At season's end, Darrell Waltrip had scored 4 poles, 1 win, 7 top 5s, and 16 top 10s, finishing a very solid 8th in final Cup Series point standings. Steve Park had scored 0 poles, 0 wins, 0 top 5s, and 5 top 10s, finishing 14th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Team owner Dale Earnhardt scored 0 poles, 3 wins, 7 top 5s, and 21 top 10s, finishing 7th in final Cup Series point standings. DEI was adding a 3rd car to their operation beginning in 2000. Therefore, they had Dale Earnhardt Jr. make 5 Cup Series starts in 1999, behind the wheel of a number 8 Budweiser Chevrolet. His best finish was 10th at Richmond in the fall. 1999 was a complete rebound season for Darrell Waltrip, showing he definitely still had the talent to wheel one of those 200-mile-an-hour chariots around the racetrack, and with the best of them. Steve Park, after a horrible rookie 1998 Cup Series campaign, marred with accidents, mechanical failures, and just out-and-out bad racing luck, had a very solid foundation season in 1999 to build from. As the season drew on, it was evident that things were really starting to click with Steve Park. Dale Earnhardt Incorporated team owner Dale Earnhardt had a solid 1999, winning 3 races and finishing top 10 in point standings with a 7th place result. Of course, Earnhardt didn't drive for his own Dale Earnhardt Incorporated race team, but rather Richard Childress Racing. Though, with him being such an integral part of the story, I decided we should follow his statistics as well. It was the year 2000, a brand new century, full of possibilities, but at the same time questions, such as, how will DEI fare as a 3-car operation, with the team being so young in the Cup Series? How was Dale Earnhardt Jr. going to do in his rookie season in the NASCAR Cup Series, coming off back-to-back Busch, now Xfinity Series titles? Well, 3 Dale Earnhardt Incorporated race teams went to Daytona. They didn't do bad, with their best finish team-wide coming from the eldest of the bunch, Darrell Waltrip, finishing 4th. For Waltrip, he returned to his number 66 Kmart Chevrolet for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated full-time. His first 7-race stint to begin the 2000 Cup Series season began very strong for Waltrip. Yet another event at Bristol Motor Speedway, winning. Other than the one race in Atlanta, when Darrell was caught up in an accident and finished 32nd, he finished 16th or better in all 6 other starts. Steve Park was looking to keep the momentum rolling that he and the team had gathered near the conclusion of the 1999 season. When mechanical failures didn't end his race, he would still score a top 10 here and there, with 4 finishes outside the top 30. He did sit on the pole for the spring Bristol race, though the season is just starting. Dale Earnhardt Jr. got off to a decent beginning to his rookie campaign in the Cup Series, although he did have 3 finishes of 29th or worse. He also scored 4 top 20s, one of which included a race in which he led the most laps on his way to his first career Cup Series victory, this coming at Texas. His father and team owner, Dale Earnhardt, had a strong beginning to his 2000 Cup Series season as well, winning the Atlanta Spring Race, door-to-door with Bobby Labonte across the start-finish line. His worst finish was 40th at Bristol after being involved in an accident. He did score 5 top 10s in 7 starts, so it was a pretty solid start. For Steve Park, this stint was not the strongest, scoring 4 top 20s with the best finish of 9th at Charlotte in the spring. Contrastly, his worst finish was 32nd at Talladega in the spring. Waltrip looked very competitive during this 7-race stint from Martinsville to Michigan in the spring. His best finish was 4th at Michigan in the spring, and his worst finish was 41st at Talladega in the spring. He finished 14th or better in the remaining 6 starts. Also, Waltrip won the pole at Martinsville, Richmond, and Dover in the spring, leading the most laps at both Martinsville and Richmond. Steve Park had a so-so 7-race stint with the best finish of 9th at Charlotte and 3 other top 20 finishes. His worst finish was 32nd at Talladega. Owner Dale Earnhardt looked very consistent during this 7-race stint, with the best finish of 2nd at Michigan in the late spring. Also, he led laps at Martinsville 42, Talladega 5, Richmond 19, Charlotte 23, and Dover 49. Out of these 7 races, Earnhardt's only finish outside the top 10 was the 17th at California. Rookie Dale Earnhardt Jr. wasn't bad during this stint. He did score his 2nd career Cup Series victory at Richmond in the spring, as well as 4 other finishes of 13th or better, having only 2 finishes of 26th or worse. For the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte, Jr. sat on the pole, led the most laps, and finished 4th. Darrell Waltrip continued to have a very strong 2000 Cup Series season in his 7-race stint from Pocono to Michigan in the fall. His best finish was 1st twice, leading 49 laps at Indianapolis and leading the most laps and winning at Michigan in the fall. His worst finish was 34th at Watkins Glen. He sat on the pole twice at Sonoma and Richmond in the fall. Now, Park, he was able to lead the most laps and finally score his first career Cup Series victory at Watkins Glen. Otherwise, he didn't really have any outstanding runs during this stint, with his worst finish being 33rd twice. Daytona in the summer and Michigan in the fall. Dale Earnhardt's best finish inside those same 7 races was 4th, after leading 17 laps at Pocono. His worst finish was 25th twice at both Indianapolis and Watkins Glen, otherwise scoring 4 top 10s. Dale Earnhardt Jr. really didn't have a very productive stint this time. This leg of the schedule just didn't jive with him in 2000. His best finish was 13th at Indianapolis, with his worst finish of 40th, following a transmission failure on lap 90 at Watkins Glen. Darrell Waltrip continued to have a hot 2000 Cup Series season. In his next leg of the schedule, from Bristol to Martinsville in the fall, at Bristol, he won the pole, led the most laps, en route to winning yet again at Bristol, winning his 15th career Cup Series race. His worst finish was 34th after leading 88 laps before his engine blew on lap 313 at Richmond in the fall. The remainder of this stint was very up and down for Waltrip. Steve Park's next stint wasn't so bad. His best finish was 4th at Richmond after leading 130 laps. The next week, he scored his worst finish of this stint, 34th, following an accident on lap 279 at Loudon. Otherwise, he didn't have a finish worse than 11th. Dale Earnhardt was solid through this stint, with the best finish at 2nd twice at Richmond and Martinsville in the fall. All 6 of his finishes were 17th or better. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a bit of an off stint, no top 10s, and his best finish was 11th at Darlington. He crashed out at Loudon, finishing 31st, and at Martinsville, finishing 36th. The final 6 races for the 2000 season for Darrell Waltrip, as he finished the season strong. His worst finish was 21st at Charlotte in the fall. Otherwise, Waltrip finished 15th or better, including 4 top 10 finishes. Steve Park finished off his 2000 Cup Series season pretty solid, with a worst finish of 21st in Atlanta in the fall, though he also scored 4 top 10s in those same final 6 races. He even won his 2nd pole of the season at Homestead. DEI team owner Dale Earnhardt finished his 2000 Cup Series season strong as well, winning in an amazing comeback from outside the top 15 with only a few laps to go at Talladega. His worst finish was 20th at Homestead in the fall. Otherwise, he finished 17th or better in the remaining 4 races. Dale Earnhardt Jr. didn't finish his rookie campaign on the strong note that he was hoping to, with a worst finish of 34th at Rockingham after crashing out on lap 235, and the best finish of 13th at Homestead in the fall. After a long 2000 NASCAR Cup Series season, Darrell Waltrip scored 9 poles, 4 wins, 12 top 5s, and 20 top 10s, finishing a very solid 7th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Steve Park had a breakout season in 2000, scoring 2 poles, 1 win, 6 top 5s, and 13 top 10s, finishing 11th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Dale Earnhardt had his best season since 1995, scoring 0 poles, 2 wins, 13 top 5s, and 24 top 10s, finishing 2nd in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a bit of an inconsistent season, though it was his rookie season, so that is definitely understandable. Overall, scoring 2 poles, 2 wins, 3 top 5s, and 5 top 10s, finishing 16th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. The 2001 season. After a few seasons of growth, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated was ready to take things to the next level. Signing lucrative, well-known sponsors, the team was flush with money and decided to grow once again as they became a 4-car operation beginning in 2001. When the team signed Michael Waltrip to drive the team's number 15 Napa Auto Parts Chevrolet. Everyone else within the team remained in the same ride for the 2001 season. Daytona went great for DEI, with DEI finishing 1-2-3 as Michael Waltrip scored his first career points-paying Cup Series victory in over 460 starts. Dale Jr. was second, and Darrell Waltrip was third. Dale Earnhardt Sr. was battling for fourth with Sterling Marlin and got sideways, collecting Ken Schrader with some mild damage, though everyone exited their cars just fine following the accident. Park ended up 31st on the day. In Victory Lane, Dale Sr. was so happy to have assisted Michael Waltrip to his first career Cup Series victory. In this world, Dale Sr. never loses his life in that accident in Turn 4 at Daytona that February afternoon. Thanks for watching Part 2. I'll be back with Part 3 in probably about another week. Part 3 will be about how NASCAR would be if Earnhardt would have lived. Again, thanks for watching, everyone, and take care.